Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson. As we travel around the county, we have the opportunity today to meet our new, well, not completely new, but been in the job a couple of months, a little bit more than that, Ondrea Johnson. Ondrea, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
She has headed up and spearheaded and now over at the Animal Center, full-time work, all the time, every
24
day.
hours a day.
And plenty of cats right now at this particular
Absolutely.
time.
Lots of one for everybody in the county.
So we want to talk about that specifically, but as we open up the show today, people are always interested, how in the world did you ever get involved in the profession that you're in? Tell us a little bit about where you came from and your brothers and sisters or dad, you know, did you just fall in love with this particular career early in life, or did you kind of migrate into it?
Well, I think I fell in love with it early in life. You know, I was born and raised in West Tennessee, actually on a rodeo stock farm. Not many people probably can say that. And we, you know, had all kinds of animals, but my parents would tell you I was dragging home strays from a very early age. I would go out on a bike ride or something and come home with a kitten or puppy I found somewhere. So I've just always gravitated towards animals. And I have five dogs, 2 cats, 4 goats, and 2 horses at home now. So my parents are really glad that's not their responsibility anymore. But I've been involved in rescue since I moved to Nashville. I moved to Nashville area in '92, and I almost immediately got started in cat rescue, which most people now, knowing I'm sort of a dog person, kind of find that hard to believe, but I do like cats too. So I started out in cat rescue and then sort of gravitated to dog rescue and have always been very involved in rescue, preservation, transport, all of that type of thing. And so when I met with started with the task force and found out that the director position was going to be open, I just jumped on the chance because it's kind of a dream for me to be able to work around the animals and really making a difference for the animals. Some hard decisions sometimes, you know. Turning away non-county residents when they have a pitiful story and things like that. Those decisions are difficult, but on a daily basis, we see really great, happy endings, and that makes it worth it.
And you brought up a topic that a lot of people may not realize, that it is in the law, the Tennessee Code Annotate, TCA, that we have an animal center. Some people call it an animal control, and some people call it different things. But law says that counties are to have that. Oftentimes that is not always done in the format that we do it here, which has been around for many, many years. In some communities, that's handled through the law enforcement community, like the sheriff's department.
Right.
And in this county, you service all of the cities, all of our 6 cities, as well as the unincorporated area. Now, you're not into wild game.
No wild game. You got to send that somewhere else, called TWRA.
When a raccoon or a skunk is up underneath your house or in the attic, we don't have the jurisdiction to handle that, and so we do encourage people that are watching this show. Ours is about domestic animals, and it even gets large animals from time to time.
Yes, we sometimes will get cattle, or I think we did have a goat out in the back pen behind the shelter at one point. So.
Well, now, you're talking about your family, and I know you live out in the Arno area, and we'll assume that your children are following in your footsteps and love animals just as much as you do.
Some more than others.
I do know, I'll let you, if you decide to give his name, your husband, he has a tendency to enjoy animals too.
He does. A little bit different take on that than I do. Yes, my husband is Glenn Johnson. I'm usually mostly known as his wife because everybody in town knows him. He's the deputy fire chief for the city of Franklin. But Glenn has bird dogs, as you know, and those are 2 of my 5. And that's a different breed of dog.
I have to tell a humorous story for those that are familiar with it. I happen to live in a community called Whitehall, and Whitehall's not, it's 1-2 acre lots, a few with 5 acres, but about 60 homes. And I have a neighbor that is a good friend with your husband, and one day I woke up and he had a young puppy, and I say a pup, probably 6 months old.
That's
of a
right.
bird dog. And I don't believe this bird dog has been able to stop running since he's got here. And it's so much fun to watch in our community. We've got a bird dog, and they've got a young son. And oftentimes the son's on the bicycle, running the dog through the neighborhood, trying to get some of that energy out of that pup. And then of course the dad, Scott, he's just beyond himself trying to figure out how to handle this bird dog. But they've got him trained. He'll run birds, but he runs
Yes.
all the time too.
Well, and that was a Father's Day present to Scott last year. They got her from us, so they've had her for just about a year now.
Yeah, it's. I never had bird dogs. We had beagles growing up, and those hunting dogs are a special breed,
They
and
are.
you have to treat them a certain way. They're not the domestic pet that we normally see laying on the back porch waiting for you to come home.
No, you know, the picture of the hound dog laying on the porch, that doesn't happen at our house. And our little female, I call her the terrorist because she's just wide open all the time. So it is, a lot of things that I do at home are very similar to what I do at the shelter. I have actually, I don't know if I told you that there was a little dog that came in, had a broken leg, and we discovered in the course of her being at the shelter that she was pregnant. So we were going to send her out to rescue, and she was supposed to leave for rescue the day after Memorial Day because, you know, everybody had been out on vacation for Memorial Day and the rescue didn't have a foster for her. Well, when I got to my office on that Tuesday morning, lo and behold, we had 6 puppies born in my office, so she's now in my basement.
Ondrea, let's talk a little bit about our animal center. You know, we've had the luxury, the honor of having a lot of men and women in the last 25, 30 years that have taken the animal center. In some areas it's called animal control, some areas just different names, but have made it a priority in our county that our community wants to treat our animals with respect and honor, particularly those that are found by the wayside. Over the last several years, our save rate is approaching numbers almost unheard of in government type work. The last number I saw was 95, 96%, and some percentages over, which is a phenomenal number, which is a real credit to you and your staff and your predecessors prior to you. But that's not easy, is it?
It's not easy at all, and it's something that honestly, you know, we struggle with every month because we have so many animals coming in. For right now, for example, is kitten season, and a lot of times we get kittens in, you know, that have been found under someone's porch, or you know, a stray cat had kittens under somebody's house or something, and they've trapped them and brought them into us. But a lot of times they're sick, so they take a lot of medicating and a lot of time to heal before we can adopt them out. So the care of those kittens falls to our staff, you know, for whatever period of time we need to be monitoring them and medicating them. One thing I would like to emphasize about that, Mayor, is we do get a lot of litters of kittens, and we are really trying to encourage people, when you bring a litter of kittens, keep the kittens there until you can trap the mother. Because if you bring us the kittens, then there's going to be another litter. And so we're happy to return the mother to you. We're happy to adopt her out if the folks don't want to bring the cat back on their property. We'll spay or neuter that animal and then return it back to where it was found, which is what a lot of people do. Obviously, if it's a stray cat, there's a food source there somewhere and the cat's doing okay. Once it's spayed or neutered, it can return to its location and be just fine, but not produce more litters. So that's one thing that we would really like to impress upon the community that's very important.
I think it would be wise at this time if I ask you, I know you have a staff of 10 or 12 people, part-time people, lots of good volunteers.
Wonderful volunteers.
We have working in our community. How does an individual get involved with the Animal Center, and what's the number to call, or how do they go about that?
So there are several ways that you can be involved. If you want to work with the dogs or cats, you come down or you can send us an email and let us know that you want to volunteer. We have a class. We have a class for cat volunteers and we have a separate class for dog volunteers. Once you go through the class, we'll assign you a mentor. Your mentor will walk you through the first few times you come to the shelter, different things that are needed. The cat volunteers, they do a little bit of everything. They socialize the cats, which really involves, getting them out. Some cats are in cages because they're not really able to be socialized with other animals. So in those cases, we'll get them out of the cages and spend time with them and give them enrichment type activities, chasing a laser or, just being held, whatever that specific cat needs. And it can go down to anything like refilling water bowls or scooping litter boxes even. The cat volunteers try to just keep the cat's environment as clean and as home-like as they possibly can. Our dog volunteers actually do a lot of dog walking. So if you're somebody who likes to walk, come down and walk a dog while you're walking. We have couple walking trails right near the shelter. The Parks and Rec Department has actually installed dog water fountains on those walking trails. So they're wooded. It's a nice, shaded area to walk. We also have dog parks there at the center. Some of our volunteers will take the dogs and have them off leash and let them chase a ball or just get energy out. When they spend a long period of time in their kennel run, it can sort of make them they get a little hyper and they need to get some energy out.
Well, I know you know this, and the people should understand that the center itself is open every single day.
It is.
And if your work schedule is traditional, Monday through Friday, but many of people don't work a Monday, Friday job anymore.
Right.
And so they have time available that, believe me, is very, very much needed. And if you have a love for that, on the weekends, on the evenings, Sundays, Saturdays, there's activity going on. And it's a matter of just picking up the phone or coming down and getting your name on there and getting engaged. Do you have an age limit, like younger people? You want them with parents?
We do. So if they're under 14 years old, and we do have 2 volunteers that come who are under 14 who come with a parent. One of the young ladies, she's there almost every day after school with her mother, and they walk dogs. But if you're 14, you can work with cats without a parent. If you're 16, you can work with dogs without a parent. And the reason for that, obviously, is just if you're working with dogs, you're usually outside somewhere. So we like for them to be a little bit older. But we have, there's all sorts of things that you can do at the shelter. We have a few ladies and one gentleman who sit up front and greet people. We always need greeters. They're wonderful. They sit and help folks fill out their adoption applications, and they do adoption counseling. We always need people to work with adopters. So we have some volunteers who come in, and they really don't so much spend time working directly with the animals. They work with the adopters and find out what kind of animal they're looking for and what type lifestyle they have, and then they'll try to point them to the right cat or dog or guinea pig. We have a few of those too.
Well, I've often said our animal center has been very blessed over the many years that I've been familiar with our animal center, and having solid volunteers, individuals that are as passionate about that as anything that anyone else would be. But the real core of your organization is your employees.
Yes.
You've got some great employees.
We do, and our employees, I mean, I don't know if people understand really what goes into helping the public have the experience that they have at the center, but we start cleaning kennels at 7 a.m., sometimes earlier, depending on, how full we are. Our shifts start at 7, but we have several kennel technicians that will come in at 6 or 6:30 to get an early start. And, all of that has to be done before 10 a.m. when we open to the public, because we want it to be, a nice experience for the public. So all the animals are cleaned and fed by 10 a.m. You wouldn't believe, I didn't think any organization in the world had more laundry than my house, but you wouldn't believe the loads of laundry we do a day, the dishes that we do every day, the booster vaccinations that we give. I mean, our employees are, when I first started, it took me quite a while to figure out, where everybody goes and at what time. We actually have a chart hanging in the hall in the back that says hour by hour what's going on and who's responsible for it. So there's a lot that goes into it, things that, most people probably, you just don't think about until you start to see how it works. But there's no one working at the center that doesn't love animals, I'll tell you that, because if you don't love animals, it's hard work.
Let's talk a little bit about cats and dogs. We'll stay in that area. Not snakes and all the other things.
We do get those.
You want to adopt a dog, or you want to take a dog home for permits. Oftentimes I've been over there, and you'll see an individual saying, "Well, is this a good fit for that person and this the temperament of the person and the temperament of the dog," I guess is a good way of it. What kind of charges do we make to the general public on a normally? Now, we have specials all the time, like this weekend. You may have a special, but or if we get overcrowded with cats like we are, we'll reduce the fees. But what are those fees typically for an individual? And when he or she pays those fees, what can we expect in the animal? Would it be spayed, neutered, checked out by a veterinarian, et cetera?
Absolutely. So all of the adult cats are $50. Adult dogs, I believe, are also $50 normally. I don't think we've had a normal price week since I've been there, but and the puppies are $85 and kittens are $50. I got that backwards. Adults are $25, kittens are $50, puppies are $85. And they will have had all of their shots. They'll be up to date on all of their shots, and they will be spayed or neutered. If they are under 2 pounds, we don't spay or neuter any animals until they're 2 pounds. So kittens, for example, it takes a little while for them to reach 2 pounds. So we typically only adopt those to county residents. So if you adopt an animal that has not been altered yet, you need to live in county. And at that point, we require an $85 deposit on the spay or neuter. And when you bring your animal back to be altered, we refund that money. So it's actually, if anyone has gotten an animal from somewhere besides the shelter and paid for all the vetting and the spay and neuter, it adds up to quite a bit more than $85. So it's not only a good value, but also you're doing a good thing by giving a pet a home that obviously is homeless.
I've always thought that our animal center was kind of, forget the administrative side for a minute, which is very important, but it's kind of in two phases. One is you can come there as an individual, myself, and see or choose a particular dog or cat, etc. But then we have another department within your center that you have jurisdiction over that has those policing authorities.
Absolutely, animal control. And, I have seen, especially I think with the summer months, animal control is very busy right now. We have 4 officers. They are we have some officers, there's someone on call at all hours. You know, you don't think about things like, for example, if a police officer pulls over a car and is making an arrest and there's a dog in the car, and that might be at 11 o'clock at night, somebody has to go get that dog. We've had, I mean, all sorts of situations. We get calls about dogs tied up somewhere, you know, where they've been abandoned. We get, one of our officers went out on a call over at Moe's in Cool Springs last weekend. There were 2 kittens that had crawled up inside the undercarriage of their car. So our officer was down on the ground, you know, crawling around under this car trying to get these kittens out. So it's just a little bit of everything, things that you don't think about. We do a lot of welfare checks, you know, if somebody's dog seems to be in distress, or maybe a stray cat that, you know, is around a neighborhood that they aren't able to catch. Our officers will go out and do welfare checks.
You bring up a topic, here we are, and summer's just started, and let's talk a little bit about public safety for our animals. Oftentimes, we take it for granted that the cat or the dog can survive, and most domestic dogs and cats can't survive without human interaction. They can't hunt the way the Western movies are. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. What some of the challenges when you go on vacation, for an example.
Right, absolutely. So that is one really good point to bring up, because we have had, over the last couple of months, a few animals that have been brought to us running as stray or tied up somewhere that someone found, and when we microchip the animal, or we sort of trace them back to their owner, we find out the owner's on vacation, and whoever was watching the animal wasn't responsible or didn't keep up with the animal, and it ended up on its own and brought to us. So when that happens, of course, we hold on to the animal until the owner can come back and get the animal or make other arrangements. When we house an animal like that, we do charge a $10 a day boarding fee, which is not to say that you can bring us your animal when you go on vacation, because we would be overrun. But that there is a charge for that. But it is important to make sure that whoever's watching your animals sort of sticks with their normal routine, because when they're out of their routine, they're more likely to escape the fence, or, you know, decide to go out on their own and try to find somebody to hang out with.
Ondrea, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left, and the conversation has been today, it's been the existing facility and over the last 25 years, and the changes that we made, and certainly the bragging rights of having a 96% save rate is, as I've said more than once, it's just unheard of. But I know around Christmas time, we always talk about sugar plums dancing in your head, and you know, the kids so excited for the holiday season, the Christmas, old Saint Nick to come. And I know you're just about as excited as a lot of the rest of us about this new shelter that we're planning on doing in the next year to year and a half.
I cannot wait. I have to keep reminding myself that we have to stay in our current building a little bit longer. But yes, we're very excited. I was actually out there at the property a couple of days ago. It's just going to be a wonderful facility. As you put together the task force and encouraged us to really think outside the box and be cutting edge, and I think the ideas that everyone has come up with, our new veterinarian that we've recently hired, she has some great ideas for the clinic that we will have at the new facility. It's just going to be a totally different experience. When I start looking at what other cities and counties have done, I mean, I think the public's going to be very proud of our new center.
I think so, and I think sometimes we're a prime example here in the government that we build schools, rightfully so. We build new fire stations, rightfully so. Parks and rec, all of these entities, but our four-legged friends, oftentimes they get left behind in the discussion and the funding and the finance, not from the standpoint of day of care, the care
Right.
you give them, but the facility. And just in the period of time that our animal center has been there, let's say it's 25 years plus, our population has gone from about 130, 120, 80 some odd thousand, depending on when you moved here. Today, we've got about 220,000 people. Well, there is a correlation between population and pets.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And many people that are moving into our community, when that kitten or pup is small, it's cute, it's cuddly, it smells good and all that, but they go to an apartment and it grows.
Right.
And oftentimes, and we don't encourage people to just take them and open the back door, let them run out, bring them
Right,
to us.
right.
Or through some of the volunteer agencies that we have here. But we're just overrun. How many today? Well, I haven't been to the office because we're taping this early in the morning, but how many cats do you have right now?
So at last count, we had over 270.
And we don't have the facility for something
No,
like that.
we don't. We have a lot of kittens in foster right now. We have over 100 kittens that are living in foster homes. That's another way to volunteer. And the foster homes, you know, they provide a space for those kittens until we have enough space to house them and they can come back to the center to be adopted.
And that's the reason for a facility. We're looking at a group of men and women. Actually, there was even a couple of younger people that have been involved of trying to find the best practices for our new center, how it lays out and how you interact as a taxpayer coming into our community. That what do you expect today, and having room for the animals to get outside to eliminate and help control the disease population that is often there. Having the proper air interchange. If you go to a hospital, that air is turning 10 to 15 times, whereas in your home, it may not rotate that many times, but getting fresh air in and out of your center. And of course, trying to eliminate some of the odors that are in there.
Absolutely.
Well, they're just giving me the signal. We're out of time. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll come back.
That's great. Ondrea Johnson, Animal Director out at Williamson County's new facility and soon to be our new. I'm Rogers Anderson. See you around town the next time. Have a good day.
Out of the Wild by David Harris. Sound ricochets through the valley, across the river, bank to bank. From the porch you hear the wails that sound at first like sirens. The dog rises, nervous, and sniffs and stays close. He knows his cousin's call. Just beyond Manhattan's nighttime glow, coyotes haunt these hills. In the morning, you grab the train for Grand Central while wildness sleeps in your backyard.